everyone wants to give us money and give everyone. So it's cool again. It's like to be a patriot. It's like, I don't know how that went uncool.
$3 a share to over $12 a share.
Teal drones, which we bought for $14 million in 2021, and it's now worth about $700 million. Actually, FPV drones are the most successful munition in Ukraine right now, more than HIMARS.
I am Jon Najarian, Rebel Extra today. And that has led us, by the way, to today's Rebels Extra with none other than the CEO of RCAT Holdings, because we talked about that several times over the past week. This is a company, folks, that is a drone manufacturer. And so rather than listening to me or somebody else on TV or streaming talking about their expertise in drone capabilities and whether or not what we're seeing in New Jersey is an alien attack, whether it is Chinese setting up for a big attack, or whether it's the U.S. Running grid patterns and apparently looking for something, who better than a guy that has built a company from scratch in the drone space? And that somebody is Jeff Thompson. Jeff, great to have you on the show, sir.
Well, just great. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it should be. And in full disclosure, folks, I live in Puerto Rico. Turns out Jeff lives in Puerto Rico and probably lived in Puerto Rico even longer than I have. And I would run into Jeff occasionally down at the harbor or some such thing. And if every time I saw him down there, I would have bought shares of his stock, I'd be probably 5 times richer right now. Because my gosh, Jeff, this is one of the top performing stocks. Your stock has gone from just pennies to as high as, I think, $12.57 this year. I mean, it tripled from the end of October right up until the end of November, I think. It went from $3 a share to over $12 a share. Like I say, I think $12.50 something a share. So tremendous performance. And that was really before everybody spoke about drones every single day. And we've been doing that, of course, because of what's going on in New Jersey. So my first question to you, Jeff, is, before I get into the genesis of the company, what the hell is going on in New Jersey with these thousands of drone sightings every day?
Yeah, I've been on national TV like 3 or 4 times this week, and it wouldn't happen because, I got a face for radio. But it's not our adversaries. And if it is, that'd be great, because if it's China and they're waiting for nighttime and putting their lights on for proper FAA lighting, that's an enemy I want to go up against every single day. It's got to be something in the government. And they're not the size of small buses, because if they were the size of small buses, they could not fly like an FPV drone or a drone like we make for the military, because they'd have 4 propellers. It doesn't exist to be able to fly like that. So it is not the size, and then everyone thinks a plane or everything else they see, a helicopter is now a drone. And to get rid of the confusion, they're putting a ban in Jersey to get rid of all the hobbyists that are probably just getting up in the sky, just trying to figure out who it is. And then everyone else thinks they're aliens too. And, then China actually responded yesterday. The CCP responded saying, this is basically just to give more hysteria, because the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, went through the Senate yesterday, going to the president's desk, which is probably going to put DJI and Autel, DJI's largest drone manufacturer that's sponsored by the CCP, putting them on the covered list, which is the same as Huawei. So they could be toast in the US market in a year. So that was them trying to lobby to try to keep their drones here. But it's looking like they're gone finally.
DJI and a lot of the things that they manufacture, because it's not just one thing, folks. They make a lot of gear, if you will, and drones. They're really known for making probably some of the easiest to fly hobbyist drones. And now I'll jump back, if I can, Jeff, to, so how did you start in the drone business?
Very interesting. I had another company that I founded, took public. It was in telecommunications. And one of my largest investors had a fund, and it was just as some of the hedge funds were starting to move to Puerto Rico. for tax reasons. And he was also wanted me to go look at a drone company because, Jeff Bezos on 60 Minutes back in like 2013, I think it was, said all packages are going to be delivered by drones. So all of a sudden drones were hot back then. That was drones 1.0, which everyone lost their shirt in. But anyway, they told me to go look at this. I went to look at this company in Florida, which is now a pretty important company called Get FPV. It's the original FPV, which is these goofy goggles that we wear when we fly. So you see what the drone sees. But anyway, I was there for a couple of days and they asked me to be the CEO. So I was like, no, I got a pretty good gig. And I bought some of the kits to actually make them. I went to school for electrical engineering. And that was in October of 2015. And in February, I asked my wife if she wanted to move to Puerto Rico, and I was going to resign from this company and start from scratch again. And I don't know why she said yes. She's just as crazy as I am.
The great weather. Great weather and the beaches.
Great island. I love it there. That got me in there. And then I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to do something in the drone world. I knew that from my last time, I rolled up 6 regional players with using a public vehicle and made a national play, putting together 6 regional plays. So with all these like very small, high-tech, great companies in this nascent technology, I was like, yeah, I need to roll up the best of the best with a public vehicle again. And that's what I've done. I actually bought 5 companies so far. And then I spun out 2, and they're doing great now. They're doing fantastic, called UMAC. Just put Donald Trump Jr. on their board. I'm also a co-founder there too. But, we sold those 2 off, and we mothballed the hardware on one side. We wanted their remote piloting, which is very important for war. And we have Teal drones, which we bought for $14 million in 2021, and it's now worth about $700 million. And we recently bought a company called FlightWave, which is very undervalued right now. The demand from the military, DOD, all the 3-letter agencies for the FlightWave Edge 130 has gone through the roof since we closed a month ago. So we have these 2 really unique birds, we call them in the industry. The Edge 130 does stuff no other bird can do, and it's a fixed wing. That's how it has the longest flight time in the government approved, called Blue UAS, but it also can hover. Again, it's not us above New Jersey. With this unique bird. But yeah, we have two great drones, and we have another system that we're actually getting from UMAC. They're building it for us called FANG. So we got FANG, we got the Black Widow, which just won a massive contract with the Army. And then we have the Edge 130, but we're switching the name to the Triton to fit into the spider world. So we call that our family of systems. But did it mostly from acquisition, but now Teal has been mostly growing organically for the last 3 years.
Sort of like Hewlett Packard, you actually started some of this in a garage right here in southern part of Puerto Rico, right?
Yes, I was I went to look at a bunch of different houses in a lot of different neighborhoods, like everyone does that's moving to Puerto Rico. And one of the locations I looked at down there in Palmas had an air conditioner in the garage. I was like, this is it. This is the one I want. It's hot here. I'm going to be in this garage, 12 hours a day. I need air conditioning, and started it there. Met a bunch of the local pilots that were racing pilots. My first employee, I just got off the phone with a few minutes ago. He just landed. He's flying all over the world. He's a really great pilot. He works for the biz dev team, demos to ministries of defense all over the place. And because he speaks Spanish, he just took over all of Latin American sales. We've got to build a company from scratch right out of Puerto Rico through the Nasdaq.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the guy handling the duties today is Jared Winkleman. Jared is fantastic. He is a producer, videographer over at Market Rebellion, and a gentleman that handles an awful lot of the social media and other posts is Andrew Coffey. And Andrew Coffey is the guy that really turned me on to Red Cat Holdings and to what you guys were doing, because he said, Jon, these guys got the best pilots on earth. And Andrew is an avid hobbyist and has had several iterations of drones. And so a lot of us, of course, are used to seeing people flying drones with, their iPhone, where the software, goes on here and they can see, of course, through the camera that's on the drone. It's basically streaming to their iPhone so they can see it like that. And then the next level up is where you've been. And that is, you put on that array of goggles and you're literally, it's like you're at the wheel of that thing and you're just flying. I couldn't believe what these drones could do. I mean, the very tiny spaces with just inches on either side, and the drone could go right through there and so forth. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, because obviously that's something that the hobbyists would envy, but not a lot of hobbyists have that kind of tech. That's an awful lot of A, skill of the pilot, and B, perhaps a slightly different drone itself for the military.
Yeah, so no one knew about FPV, just 2 years ago. There's been maybe a million FPV drones made in the history of FPV in the early teens, 2013 or so. And then as LiPo batteries became even more important and made you be able to fly longer, and the performance. And so you basically build these things called first-person view drones. They're very, they're basic. They just basically have a computer that tells the electronic speed controllers really simply, 4 propellers, which direction to spin and how fast. But when you see these pilots in person, going 70, 80 miles an hour, doing stuff that no one else can do. And naturally, as things progressed, the war broke out in Ukraine and they didn't have drones. They said, wow, we could probably use these FPV drones. And all of a sudden they become one of the most successful. Actually, FPV drones are the most successful munition in Ukraine right now, more than HIMARS, more than javelins. I mean, this thing that costs $1,000, and I was there last year and got to do a little ride along on one of the test facilities, and to see how they use these things. Wow, they takes them about 10 days to train these guys, and they go right to the front, and they're doing things with $1,000 drones that you can't believe. They're fast. And, you can go 5 feet off the ground and go 70 miles an hour. If you're the enemy, by the time you hear that coming, it's too late. So this, now we've got, Eric Schmidt from Google went there a bunch of times to see these FPV drones. Now he wants to build an FPV company. I think he is. It's something like a White Ghost or something. I forget what it is, but now everyone knows what FPV is, but because of the Ukraine war. And now the actual Department of Defense is building a program, which is going to be a traditional program of record for FPV drones. And I think our sister company, UMAC, will do very well from that, because they've been in that business. They basically, Alan and the co-founder of Fat Shark that made these, they basically invented FPV. They tell me never to say that, but no one else built a real goggle that was reliable and built in the tens of thousands every year. So no one knows FPV better than UMAC, Unusual Machines. So it's going to be great times, but the drone industry is now realizing that you don't need exquisite $33 million Reapers. You're going to use smaller drones that are portable. And with that, like the Black Widow, which we just launched in September, and that's the drone that we built for the U.S. Army. For 5.5 years, we've been trying to win a program of record. Started with like 30-something companies. It included all the big guys, the big primes, AeroVironment, Boeing, Lockheed. Went from 30-something companies down to 5. Then it went from 5 down to 3. It was us, Vantage Robotics, and Skydio. Skydio is very well backed from Andreessen Horowitz. And then down to 2. And then we had our final prototype deliveries in May. And we were sole source selected for 12,000 drones, 6,000 systems. Each system is 2 drones and 1 controller, but it has to fit in a rucksack. And when you look at what this drone can do, you can fit it in your rucksack. So every soldier can be on a battlefield, can launch a drone, go around, do reconnaissance. It also has kinetic capability. I can drop that kinetic and keep the drone. Or if I see a $4 million tank and want to get rid of my $17,000 drone, that's a great statistical win. You can just kill that target very easily. Or if you see, people carriers, mortars, you have air support by yourself. You don't have to call in air support and have that capability. And more recently, just this week, we announced our combination with Palantir. So that same drone that we can fit in our rucksack has artificial intelligence, the best in the market. They're actually making revenue off of AI. A lot of companies aren't. But in that small drone, we have artificial intelligence. And when you're in Ukraine or any battlefield, GPSs don't work. So a lot of drones can't go to the battlefield because they're useless. So we also are partnering with them for their software called Visual Navigation, VNav. So no GPS required. It relies on the cameras to drive the drone on a battlefield when a GPS is being jammed. So it's kind of like a Tesla. They use cameras.
That was one of my questions. In fact, this Palantir partnership, if you will, seemed like that was pretty groundbreaking because AI for navigation, for all the reasons that you just mentioned, Jeff, seems like a game changer. And the fact that Palantir picked you guys to do this with, I'm sure Mr. Schmidt over, the former Google guy, is probably surprised that they decided to throw in with you. But then again, you've got 12,000 of these that are going to be in the field, and he's just starting to get into the field.
Yeah. So when you have the way AI has to work is they have to have lots of cameras and sensors, and all that data becomes what teaches the AI further and further and further. And they've been doing it for 20 years for the military with their AI. It's called Maven. So when you believe it or not, the drone that we have in our rucksacks now is more capable than the drones that cost tens of millions of dollars. But with this technology on there, that it's even tenfold of what we can do. And those sensors, the sensors in the cameras, payload they call it. That's military speak for camera. It's actually the largest buy from the DoD for a drone in quantity, not in dollars. So we're going to have the most cameras and the most sensors out in the battlefield. So it's for Palantir to want to choose us. That's probably a big reason. I'm just happy they're working with us. They're a great company. We align with their culture quite a bit. They're really fun to work with, and they get shit done. It's
Mr. Carp kind of drives them hard, but that's another Peter Teal, Elon Musk company, right? Far as those guys were both involved.
I don't know if Musk is in there. You got John Lonsdale and a lot of smart guys in there that are also patriots. It's good to see that these days. They kind of started all that, and then Anduril came in, and then all of a sudden, no VC would touch a defense company. Now they're all drooling over everybody, and everyone wants to give us money and give everyone. So it's cool again. It's like to be a patriot. It's like I don't know how that went uncool.
Question about the war in Ukraine and/or Gaza, wherever soldiers may be using your technology. And I know, like you said, it's U.S. Army and it's the Black Widow and so forth. If the wars wind down, there's still going to be plenty of action and plenty of demand for what Red Cat Holdings does, right?
Yeah, so everyone is, if you look at the percent of GDP in all of NATO, it looks like a hockey stick graph. I think Poland's 3x of what they used to be. No one wants to get caught like Ukraine and have to start building drones and begging other countries for money. So everyone's going to stockpile, specifically in NATO, because it's going to be, even if they stop that war tomorrow, no one's going to believe that, everything's going to stop. And then you got the Middle East, you got Gaza. There's we're getting a lot of information and requests out of Lebanon and that area and Syria. And then Indo-PACOM, which they're really trying to turn the Taiwan Strait into a drone hellscape, is the way they're putting it. There's some very interesting things we need to do there too. So I don't think not just us, but any defense company that's making small, smart stuff that's inexpensive, it's going to probably fit really nicely into the Doge environment. Not wasteful $35 million drones that can be shot out of the sky in like 20 seconds, like the Reapers.
It is pretty amazing. I mean, occasionally I see these reels, Jeff, of a ship firing missiles, and with each missile that goes, they have $1 attached to it, and it just shows like boom, 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 and it's like $10 million because each one of those was $2 million, and those are the cheap ones. It's amazing when these defense mechanisms on these ships and so forth, when they see something incoming and they're firing 1,000 rounds per second sort of thing. You know, forget about a minigun. These things are just, it's going so fast and that barrel is spinning around so quick, they can do hundreds of thousands of dollars just on each violation of their airspace. And
yeah, it's nuts.
To have you guys with these drones and the capabilities they have with the right pilots is pretty compelling.
Yeah, the way they're looking at drones now, specifically, you know, for ours, the system only cost about $45,000. They're really looking at us as a munition, which is fine by me. Use it as a munition and keep buying them. But you know, as you were just mentioning, these, I think when Iran sent the first volley of like 300 or X amount of drones towards them, I think they spent $3 billion that night shooting them down. So that's got to stop. So this is where you can, one of the things that we do is we also have the only commercial swarm capability available. And we have one, it's called the Hive XL. It can fit 80 drones. You got to pull it with a trailer. It can be put on the front of a ship. We have another one that's made for the back of an Army M-Razor Polaris, you know, like a dune buggy thing, but it can fit 12 drone swarm on there. So we want to put these things on boats in the Strait. So if there's a low flying aircraft, we can send 80, you know, $17,000 drones and take down the $30 million helicopter. That's a lot less expensive than you know, sending off $1 million missile like they were doing in Israel.
Maybe talk for a second about obviously drones are unmanned. It could be somebody like Jeff that's wearing those goggles, but the vehicle itself is an unmanned vehicle by its very nature. And so without a human on board, you don't have to worry about what Top Gun Maverick was showing, where these guys are pulling up and they're, you know, experiencing 6 to 8 Gs, and all of a sudden, as hard as they might push, they might black out because, you know, too many G forces. Meanwhile, the drone, it's just up to the capability of how much can that particular piece of hardware take, not how much can the human take. Yeah,
I think the additional amount for, you know, some of these fighter jets to put a human being in there is like $13 million. A, you can get rid of $13 million, and B, you're like you just mentioned, the performance and the way they can fly is going to be, it would look erratic to us because we think like humans, like why would that plane fly like that? But they can do turns that we wouldn't want to do being inside that plane. So the performance goes up, and you know, the best thing is we don't want our soldiers dying. Why send robots?
That's right. Now, do you guys train the pilots as well? Do you have a division of RCAT Holdings that trains the pilots? You deliver, so a sale happens and you guys deliver the hardware. Is there that option where they say, yeah, but we need these guys trained on this?
Yeah, so the short range reconnaissance program of record we just were awarded about a month ago is for, you know, based on the amount of systems that they're fielding, is about $260 million. But typically on top of that, on a program of record, you have spares, repairs, and training. And that usually brings up the contract by approximately 50 to sometimes 70%. So training is a big thing that you need to do. We've actually just done some training in Australia. We're doing some training over in NATO right now. To, you know, that's the most important thing, so they can really utilize the tools that we're giving them so that they get the best out of the drone. So you want them very well trained, because otherwise if they're not trained, they're going to crash it, break it, and then they're going to blame the drone. So we try to train as best we can to make sure they're doing. But yeah, training is crucial when you're selling to the departments of defense and ministries of defense.
So about how long does it take to train a pilot, a military pilot for this? I mean, let's say it's a soldier and they've never flown a jet or a plane or anything else. I don't know that that would matter really, but let's say that they have no flying experience whatsoever. How long does it take to bring them up to speed?
The good thing is a lot of these young soldiers have been playing video games for the last 10 years.
That's what I thought.
And yeah, so they can get on the sticks. It's very similar to an Xbox controller. Actually, some of them actually look exactly like an Xbox controller. So their capability for the eye-hand coordination to train is pretty easy, and the drone can help and assist. But there's certain modes like we always go up against electronic warfare, so they're trying to jam the controller, they're trying to jam the GPS, and if you can beat that, it's very scary, and our enemies should be scared, because we can also go into this mode called dark mode, and that means there's no electronics being used, and once it's locked onto a target, it's going to get its target no matter what you throw at it with EMP and electronic jamming like the Russian jammers and the GPS connections. It's over when we go into dark mode if it's got a lock on you.
That's pretty scary stuff. And I got to believe, even though, right now Red Cat Holdings is primarily military, and you spun out some of these other companies that you talked about top of the program, that there's got to be some uses of these, perhaps not with the munitions, but there's got to be uses for this for local law enforcement and certainly border patrol and all that, right?
Yeah, actually, Border Patrol is a big customer for us. So even though we focus on the military, we do get a lot of stuff like Border Patrol, DHS, Department of State, Cal Fire. We won a bake-off almost 2 years ago against some of the same players I mentioned earlier. They bought like 50 drones from all of us, and then we had a bake-off, and we ended up winning that. We're hoping they're probably all going to upgrade now to the Black Widow. That was the Teal 2. And then recently, as we just closed with FlightWave, we got an order from the Border Patrol for them. So we're really the drone vendor of choice for the Border Patrol. I will say that the FlightWave Edge 130 is the only drone that can keep up with a motorcade of some very important person. So I'll just say that, and I'll leave it there. But yeah, it is dual use. But that's just basically, if you make something that's really good enough for the warfighter that can protect that warfighter, make the warfighter smarter, safer, and more lethal, it's going to have a million applications. Even like our small swarm, there's a hostage situation. The police show up, they can launch 4 of our birds at the same time. One pilot can control all 4. They can literally put a drone on each side of the building and make sure no one squirts out, put the thermal on and see if they're near the window or how many people, try to get a grasp of how many people are in there. And then if you get a break, you could actually send one of the FPV drones, the Fang, like UMAC makes, break through a window and just fly around on there until you find the enemy or the person that's the bad guy, the criminal holding someone's hostage or something. But the amazing things we can do with drones now for first responders is just amazing. The difficulty in the past has been their budgets to be able to buy military style technology. But now that DJI and Autel are going to probably get banned and put on the cover list, that's going to be a massive amount of total addressable market that wasn't there as of yesterday before 11:30 when the Senate signed it.
Well, and folks, so that TAM, that total addressable market, is massive for these drones. And, I think most of you can read between the lines here. If you're taking out 2 of the biggest makers of those drones through this bill that was just signed on the 19th, you got to think that firms like Red Cat Holdings are licking their chops, because whether it's UMAC or Red Cat or any of these others, the ones that don't have Chinese parts, the ones that aren't made in China and driven by the CCP, are going to be huge winners. I'm just letting you know the way I'm seeing it right now. So, Jeff Thompson, great conversation, sir. Red Cat Holdings, RCAT, is the stock. Gosh, I think it's up 1,600% year to date or something like that. Some crazy returns on that. Make sure you check it out, RCAT, Red Cat Holdings. And we're going to get Jeff and one of his pilots, or maybe Jeff, on the Hill of Death down here in Puerto Rico, filming in and out of some of the.
We'll need another pilot. I'll just try to keep up with you.
That'll be fun. So thank you, Jeff Thompson. Appreciate your time. To all of you, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And I look forward to coming back with another Rebels Extra in the near future.